Hey everybody, Jason Yee here, and welcome to the second or third presentation in Slingshot 2, where we're talking about aiming 2.0. We're going to really break down Auston Matthews' mechanics for this one. It's going to be a fun one. So this week, we're talking about aiming 2.0. Last week, we talked about killing common cues, and in week one, we talked about becoming the bow. So you're not going to be able to do too well with aiming 2.0 if you haven't killed the common cues and you haven't understood how interpretation of cues matter, and also if you haven't figured out the becoming a bow, using the stretch and bounce of your muscles for the slingshot. So if you're having any trouble with aiming 2.0, you're going to want to go back to weeks 1 and 2 before you get to here. But now that we are here, and if you have dominated weeks 1 and 2, well, then it's time to introduce this new concept called aiming 2.0, and we're going to use an analogy here to illustrate this idea in a way that makes sense. So we all know computers, right? And with a computer, what you typically have is you have like a central processing unit. For lack of a better term, that's what we'll call like our brain, right? Now, every computer has a certain amount of memory, and that memory can kind of like hold and store different information that the central processing unit can, use and process. And you can tell I'm not a computer science person, but the analogy will work. And based on the amount of memory you have a certain amount of room to run applications, right? So if you guys know from some of my older presentations, I had a computer with less memory, and so I had less room to, let's just say I had this much memory. Well, then I could maybe run this application at full speed, but then this one would be at half speed and this one would be at half speed. So that's kind of like how a computer works. And when I got a new computer with more memory, well, then I had more speed to run all these applications. Now that's kind of like how our brain is, but like our brain isn't like a computer in the sense that you can just go and buy some more memory, right? You kind of have a fixed set of memory. Like you have, we would call this attentional resources that your brain is capable of paying attention to. Things that your brain is able to pay attention to. So when it comes to shooting, this is how we can extend the analogy to shooting. So the first thing is, this is where beginners usually are. And they run 3 applications, right? So the applications they're running here are called balance, concentric contractions, and aiming. So imagine for every shot, you're running you're running all 3 of these programs at once. Now, beginners, where they start out, is they are running a really big balance program. The balance program is taking up a lot of their memory. It's because they're usually not very good skaters. They haven't really mastered downhill skating. Every time they go to shoot, they're off balance. And what's interesting about the balance program is that your computer, your brain, is always going to prioritize the balance program first, right? So that's where a lot of beginners are. But then as you get better, you start to move towards where most players are, where their balance is like so-so, but they really start focusing on concentric contractions. Now, concentric contractions are where you generate tension and shorten the muscles. So that's what it feels like when you're doing like a bench press or a squat. It's that type of a contraction. And that, usually leaves around just a little bit of your memory left over for aiming. But where does aiming 2.0 get us to? So when we get to aiming 2.0, what we get to is we improve our balance through the downhill skating system and through a couple of drills I'm going to show you today. And we stop trying to concentrically contract, and instead we use the bounce of our muscles. We become the bow, and we don't need to use as much concentric contractions. And because we have better balance through some of the drills I'm going to show you today and through some of the concepts. And because we also don't need as much concentric contractions, we got more memory left over for aiming. And this is aiming 2.0. And this, everybody, is where top players like Auston Matthews end up. So let's talk about how aiming 2.0 is automatic. And let's just take a quick look here at Auston Matthews and just notice how like subconscious this whole thing is. Notice how quick and how balanced he is as he shoots, and he doesn't even need to look. It doesn't even look like he's off balance, doesn't even look like he's trying, and that, everybody, is aiming 2.0. And we're going to show you a couple examples of this. Now, why is aiming 2.0 aiming 2.0? Like, why am I saying that if you just simply open up more memory available for aiming, then your aim is going to get better? The reason for that is because aiming 2.0 is automatic. Aiming in general is automatic. In fact, it's entirely subconscious. And you literally have to shut off parts of your brain in order to aim properly. Now, this is a really, really complicated diagram from Joan Vickers in 2009. And basically, this is talking about like the interaction of attentional systems, aka your memory. Okay, so your attentional systems are like your memory. Now the thing is if you have both dorsal attention, meaning your motor cortex is active, and you have ventral attention, meaning that you have your visual cortex is active, then you end up having a non-focused state. So your gaze is like all over the place. Your eyes end up kind of like looking all over the place. Now you don't have to think about this. You don't have to think about this. I'm telling you what happens. And then the effect is the motor control is herky-jerky. Okay? So when we're aiming in a calm, controlled way using something called the quiet eye, then all that happens is you have your movement, your motor cortex is taking action, and your ventral attention, so your visual cortex, the visual part of your brain actually shuts off, thus having a nice, quiet, calm eye movement, and then you have nice, quiet, calm motor control. So the reason I bring this up, I know it's very complex and detailed, and you don't really need to understand all of this, but it's just showing that aiming 2.0 is automatic. Aiming itself is automatic and subconscious, and you don't need to actually think about it. In fact, thinking about it will mess it up. So important to understand that. And that's why when you simply open up more memory bandwidth for aiming, your aim improves. It's just that most of the time you're running programs, your balance program and your concentric contraction program are taking up too much memory. There's not enough left over for aiming. So there's 3 keys to aiming 2.0. One is you're going to create balance through rotation and counter rotation. And I'm going to show you Matthews here in a second. And you're going to use the passive bounce and stretch instead of concentric contractions. And I'm going to connect these in some drills for you. And then you're going to trust that your body will automatically aim where it should when there's enough memory. And this is key, because if you do these 2 things and then all of a sudden you start thinking and you try to like consciously aim, you throw the whole thing off. So let's look at a couple clips here. So when it comes to Matthews, watch him stick handling. Let's just watch him stick handling for a bit. I'm going to play this clip out here. And what you're going to notice is that as the puck rotates and goes back this way, his other foot ends up counter-rotating. So do you notice how when his stick moves across, his feet counter-rotate? Okay, so you see the puck come across here, and then this foot moves forward. There's a counter-rotation there, right? Now this is nothing new. This is like inner spring. This is like precise puck control. It's everything that we've always known before. But you can really clearly see, and I really like this part of the clip right here, where you can see as he pulls back, right here, you see there as he pulls back with the puck, the other leg shoots forward. There's always a counter rotation to maintain, guess what? His balance. And then you see how he always is very balanced, right? So he's always balanced around his center, because when his upper body rotates one way, his lower body rotates actually that way and that way as a counter rotation. So you're going to see that as well right here in this example. So watch here as he receives it and his body moves counter to his stick handling. So as he's stick handling out this way, this foot is also countering. And he's able to, here, as he's shooting like this, he's also counter rotating his body to create balance around his center. And so you can see, look how balanced he is after his shot. And that is the rotation and counter rotation, and that's how you create your balance. And then you can also see how he's using the passive stretch and bounce of his muscles. So there's no concentric load up and push here. This is just simply that he's pulling back right here. He's creating a stretch, and then he's releasing that stretch. Okay. Now, what does this look like in a drill? Well, let me show you. This is just with a really light medicine ball, and you really don't want to be using anything heavy. There's nothing here about form. I don't want you to think about form. I don't want you to think about any of that. What I want you to think of is simply rotating and counter-rotating to keep your balance. So I'm just simply twisting, and as you can see, I'm lifting my leg, and all I'm aiming to do here is keep my balance. I'm not actually trying to do anything. I'm just twisting, and as I rotate with my body this way, you can see my hips have to rotate the other way to keep balance. I'm not trying to do anything, nothing special here. There's no technique. All there is a rotation while keeping my balance. And that is all that Matthews is doing right here. He's just counter-rotating to keep his balance, and then he's going to shoot. So what is your homework? Your first homework is to do this drill, and just to practice swinging a medicine ball or a weight or whatever it is you want side to side, lifting your feet, and then just feeling absolutely balanced in that process. Again, notice how my counter rotation has me completely balanced across my center line right here. And that's what you want to be doing. The other part of this is that as I rotate and have the ball swing this way, and again, you can use weight, you can use whatever to practice this, I'm getting a stretch across my shoulder to my other hip down into my ankle. So I'm getting a stretch across my posterior oblique sling, and it just feeds the movement back the other way. Boom. And that is that bounce and passive stretch. And there's no concentric contraction going on here. And so that's what allows me to be here and have a small balance program running, just because of my counter rotation and rotation. And then using the bounce and contraction, I have a small concentric program, thus allowing much more room in my memory banks for aiming. So you're going to do that. You're going to practice that drill, the medicine ball drill, and then you're going to do these 4 things. You're going to make sure you're using skates and rollerblades for this, or skates or rollerblades, because you want to really make sure you're getting that rotation and counter rotation for balance. And all you want to do here is you don't try to shoot with any power. or anything, you just want to focus on your balance. That's the most important thing for 100 passes. Then you're going to fully delete concentric contractions. Once you're feeling really balanced after your shots through rotation and counter rotation, then you're going to delete concentric contractions. Just simply let go of them. Then you're going to do 100 of creating stretch and release. Okay, you're going to create extra stretch and then release. And then the last part is you're going to aim, but you're going to focus on shutting off your brain when you aim. Like, don't think. You're just going to look at a thing and then hit it instead of trying to like think about where your aim is. And then you're going to repeat this with 100 shots each. You want to film at least 3 reps per shot and post the Train 2.0 Facebook group, and then review or have a coach review. And you're going to want to get some feedback on that. So that is aiming 2.0. And it really comes down to this as the analogy. And now that you have week 1, week 2, week 3, becoming the bow, killing common cues, and aiming 2.0 under your belt, we are going to go into how these integrate into Austin Matthews' slingshot connection, Nathan MacKinnon's slingshot connection, and Elias Pettersson's slingshot connection. So next week is Austin Matthews, where we're going to dive deep into his shot. And you guys are going to see how all these things from weeks 1, 2, and 3 connect. So we'll see you then. Thank you for watching.